Welcome to the Bottom Line Podcast with Nicholas Kuzmich, where we discuss what matters most, the bottom line, featuring the top minds in their industry. Now, let's get started.
Hey everybody, Nicholas Kuzmich here from the Bottom Line Podcast, where I connect with industry leaders and what I sometimes call industry sleepers to discuss what matters most, and that is the bottom line. Now, of course, when I'm talking about the bottom line, I don't just talk about bottom line profits, although that's ultimately important, but really what matters most to a business, to a founder, to a successor, and all that. Past guests have included Nathan Chen from Founder, Russ Ruffino from Clients on Demand, and so many more, all of which you can watch or listen to however you listen to podcasts. This message and this podcast is brought to you, as they all are, from H2H Media Group. That's the company I founded, where we help high-ticket business owners create more qualified leads and how to do that without funnels. We've generated close to $1 billion in sales collectively between us and our clients clients over the last 2 decades or so. If you want to learn more, go to nicholaskuzmich.com. Enough of that. Shaun, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
I appreciate it. Now, what I like to tell my guests, and this may sound like the lazy way out or not, is rather than reading some bio that I pulled off the internet or that your team sent to me or anything like that, I'd love to turn it over to you and just say, hey, in an elevator pitch style, if someone were to say, well, who's Shaun Clark? What do you do? And tell me a little bit about your company. Now, everyone who's listening to this is probably going to know your company, but just who you are, what you do, a little bit about your company. You can take as little or as much as you want, because I think it's going to spawn some other questions from me anyway. So how would you answer that?
Sure. Co-founder and CEO of HighLevel. And these days we're so big, I just say, an all-in-one marketing and CRM for pretty much any, small to medium business out there. And, that's us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I guess from what you've built over the last few years, there's not much to have to say other than, hey, we're HighLevel, and people either get it or they don't. So I appreciate that.
And I'm the worst salesperson for my own products. So, anybody asks me to really go deep, I say, well, you probably should find somebody else to describe it, because I'm terrible at it.
Well, there might be something to say about that, right? Because in the information kind of like agencies / like product space or whatnot, in the internet space, everyone is not like product-led selling. It's like guru-based selling or information-based selling. It's how can you craft the most intelligent marketing message to try to communicate what you do. I know we're jumping into this early, but I think it might be a great segue. It's HighLevel truly is not only product built and customer built, because it's like, what's the next thing for HighLevel to build? It's whatever the customers want, right? So it's like pretty simple.
Yep, you got it.
But it's also like you don't have to come up with fancy marketing, because it's the product leads the path. It's just give it a try, see what it can do, and you're either going to love it or hate it. Most people love it. They stick with it. They end up canceling 14 other things that they're using and replace it with HighLevel, and off you go. So is that how it actually started? Was the thought to say, let's create, because I mean, you talk a lot about SaaS-preneurs and SaaS. Most people in the information space or the agency space, they all dream of SaaS, but have no thought to create an app or something like that. Was that the plan from the beginning, to just create?
No, that would be too smart and too intelligent and make me sound like I'm way cooler than I am. No, we got into this space because there was to be fair, we got started in this space because we wanted to serve small business owners and help them market their businesses. And we learned through our third co-founder, who cold called us one day, that marketing agencies and consultants and, there's like a lot of kind of, even you can even call it creators. There's a really wide kind of net there, but anybody who's in the business of translating, I think, these tools into reality for their customers fundamentally is way more important than I think they ever got credit for. And this was kind of how we stumbled into it. And initially, of course, it was a very small use case, which was we were working with lead gen agencies. They were generating leads for customers. Those leads were not converting. And we helped automate the missing piece, which is the nurture piece, which is really that follow-up between opt-in and, let's say, booking an appointment, right? That was sort of step one.
Yes.
But what we learned in that journey, right, is that, if you're really good at something and you're really terrible at something else, if you can find someone else who's really good at that, why try to get good at it? And so that's exactly what we've done. So our customers are the best marketers on planet Earth. and they understand how to take these tools and put them together with all the other components that are necessary. And whether that's going out to a plumber, whether that's going out to a marketer, it doesn't matter. They're the experts there.
Right.
So our mission became, okay, well, let's just be really good at what we're good at, which is product and engineering. And let's work with the people who are amazing at marketing and sales. And that's kind of how we've kind of come into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of me is tempted to ask you about all the cool features of HighLevel and all that you're about to work on and all. Part of it is I want to keep this conversation evergreen, obviously, because
Sure.
whatever you mentioned today is going to be a full-fledged feature in a few months from now, and then you're going to be working on the next thing, which I love. But if we just look at the model, like I'm super interested on a couple of levels, and I want to talk actually business growth strategy because
Sure.
one of the things that I noticed you guys, like you entered into a market where there were category kings, frankly, in every space.
It was a nutty market. In fact, we never thought to enter into the market we now live in.
Right.
And had I I would have laughed at myself at the time
Okay.
had I said, "Oh yeah, we're going to do that." Like, no, that wasn't what we were saying. We were saying, okay, we're gonna help an underserved market
Yeah.
with a very specific thing. And
Right.
what we did is we solved one problem and we just kind of built up from
Yeah,
there.
led to the other.
And to be honest, yeah, it was and this is the most important thing about this. It's a journey, it's a discovery process. It's not some like master plan that, we already knew this was all going to happen. That's just nonsense. And
Yeah.
anybody who tells you otherwise is also just lying about it. Fundamentally, if you're in there day to day with your customer, you're just continuing to learn, solve, and it's just this repetitive process.
Yeah, I think that's worth bringing up a little bit because again, part of my question was going to ask, even though I kind of hinted at knowing that the answer wasn't the case, is like, what was the play that you guys as co-founders had to enter into this marketplace? But there really wasn't. It was innovating every step of the way. One key thing you did mention was, and I know this is overplayed, but I wonder if you have any other different understandings of it, is you went after like an underserved market. And I think there are people who may not, our primary audience here are high ticket coaches, consultants, and those
Sure.
people. And whenever we started working with some of them, the first thing is, well, like we help people reduce their stress or whatever. Like
Yeah.
that's cool, but there's probably a ton of other people who do something similar. What segment of that is underserved that you can really dive into? And, a use
Right.
case, we we're having a great conversation with a guy at an event, and they're saying, oh, well, the reason we created this business was because my wife postpartum was really stressed out and was trying to figure out herself. And that's why we came up with this. I'm like, ding, ding, ding. Why
Yeah.
don't we start there? How did you stumble across what was the underserved market and how did you stumble across them
Sure. Yeah.
before you
So
evolved
I
into
think that's another great story because again, while we could say that now, we also had no intention of doing that. And we didn't know there was an underserved market initially. And what happened was simple. We started selling to small businesses and, initially we would get on these calls. The small businesses would love the product. They would buy it. And then 2 weeks would go by and then they would cancel. And then we would call
Right.
them up. We'd be like, what the heck is wrong with you? You said this
Yeah.
thing's amazing. And then they'd be like, oh, well, we just don't have the time to implement it, which to two software engineers is like the worst thing you could ever say. And for us, what we were so fortunate to have happen is we had a marketing agency call us and say, hey, you have a co-customer in common with us, this and that. We'd love to see what you're doing, yada, yada. And honestly, I didn't even want to talk to this guy initially because I'm like, he's not my customer. So we got on the phone, but he bridged that gap for us. He said, hey, what you guys don't understand is there is this whole world of people out here who don't get to take credit for the results of their work because the small business owners never like, oh, well, I'm actually a moron, but I grew my business 100% because of Bob over here. No, they're not going to say that. They're going to either take credit for it or keep quiet. But fundamentally, and he was a super nice guy and he jumped in there. He helped introduce us to a lot of people. He didn't just tell us that. And he worked with us. It got so embarrassing, actually. It was 2 years. He gave up his whole life to spend his own money to go around the country with me, promote the product.
Wow.
The thing is, I know he's amazing. Which is why I made our co-founder. It got ridiculously embarrassing. But at some point you got to realize it's an incremental process. And I think this was important to talk about because we didn't understand this market even existed, right? It was an exploratory thing. I didn't have a background in agencies. I'd never been an agency owner.
Right.
I mean, I worked with many agencies in my past businesses, but I didn't have any insight. If anything, I would have just told you my past run-ins with agencies tell me their business models are terrible and I don't want anything to do with them because they don't scale very well.
Right.
So there was no amazing aha moments or any of that stuff. It was just an incremental process, serving these customers, initially seeing it and a lot of it's the first thing you think is, well, maybe we could just use them as a distribution model. And then you talk to them, they're like, well, we've had other software companies do that before, and this is what we didn't like about
Okay.
it. So then we pivoted and we're like, oh, well, maybe we can offer white label and we can offer this and we can offer that. So, again, it's an incremental motion all the way through.
I guess the question along those lines, and maybe there isn't an answer, but it's like, do you feel you did anything to get that call from that now co-founder? That because like in anyone's business who's hearing that story, including mine, sometimes you're just like, oh Jesus, I just need that phone call, man. That one person to like open up, tell me what I'm missing, and then
Well, I
lead me
mean, to
down
be
a path.
fair, I mean, in that specific case, I'd say no. But I mean, the reality is I've always been rabid about talking to people.
Yes.
And I don't even like it. I'm not good at it. I'm not a salesperson. I'm a software nerd. But I've just found that if you can find someone who's interested in talking to you, and this isn't like a sales call, this is like just a, hey, can you tell me your
Yep.
feelings and thoughts on this? You
Right.
learn so much.
Right.
So to be fair, I would have found a way, one way or
One
another.
way or another.
We found let me tell you, this is the best way we could have ever found. And I give 100% credit to this guy. And this all fell into my lap. So I take zero credit. But the fact of the matter is, for anybody who hears that and feels discouraged, I would say, don't worry about it. You just need to pound, 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 pound,
Yeah.
pound. Because what I will tell you is I already knew one thing. I knew where not to go, which is
Sure.
continuing to sell hand to hand to SMBs was going to be a big fat failure. I needed to do something else. They're too hard. They don't have the time. They can't learn. And as a result, they're really churny. So you
Yeah.
got to go elsewhere, right? So sometimes knowing what not to do can be just
Right.
as powerful as what to do, because now you just throw out anything that looks like you're getting near the what not to do area, so you can focus on figuring out what to do.
Well, to give you some credit, I think one of the things that people may not know about you if they're not in the high level community is you might not be a public figure to the public, but you're the main figure inside the community. You're always asking the questions, you're always answering the questions, you're always giving people updates. Can you talk just a little bit? And that's your consumer, but it seems like that also translated over because most people, especially in our day and age, when it comes to automations and tech and all that, it's like, well, I'm just not going to talk to people. Why don't we just
Yeah.
have the systems do it all?
Yeah,
But
right.
what you were saying is you would have found one way or another, but what you were good at is having conversations with people and exploring. And as a result, the right person just happened to come across your path. Do you have anything to say about like maybe having some of these digital entrepreneurs and whatnot leaning more into the humanity of the business rather than just the tech and everything else that, high level is a part of course, but there's something more that undergirds
Oh,
that.
100%. In fact, I mean, to be fair, like especially early on, even as we built our systems, there are many points in between, and I'm sure even to this day, where there's somebody else out there that has a superior feature set.
Hmm.
But the reality is that if you find an audience and and you you truly care about them
Yeah, right.
and you focus in on them, the fact of the matter is, the way I always sort of thought about it was, well, let's just assume that everybody else, every other competitor has every feature we do, and in the same way or better than we do.
Great
But at
point.
the end of the day, this person knows that I'm going to continue to care about them above
Right.
all else, and I'm going to continue to build for them above all else. If I am anywhere within the ballpark of what they need, and I can show that I can deliver quickly, I think they're going to make the calculus that at the end of the day, they're still better off sticking with me, even if they could get this feature down the road from somebody else, even for less money.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, if those people, those other providers, which are still this way today, focus on everybody, then that just makes you a nobody, right? Like
Yep.
you're just one of the crowd. And so when you have somebody else who's really focused in on you, you're going to get a product that's built for you. So I always knew that no matter what, like if I just focused on that one niche, I could eventually win out over all these other systems, which clearly did not care about these people. And as
Yeah.
I got, and as I taught, and I only learned this from talking to these people. The more you talk to them, it was like, yeah, well, we work with so and so, and they kind of pay attention to us, but they mostly don't.
Yeah.
And they're mostly, there to take our business and take our customers, but not really there to help support us in any way. And I was like, okay, well, what if we did the same thing they're doing for you on a feature perspective, but we
Take care of
actually
all that.
create systems, yeah, to support you and care about you and make you the primary customer. And I think that's what's really resonated for a long time.
Yeah, part of me was going to almost ask the question of like, were you just right place, right time? Because I think there was also this pent up
There's always
frustration.
some of that.
But it's funny, on the surface, it's just like pent up frustration in the marketplace of tools of companies who don't care about them using the tools, messing them up. And then another thing comes in and it's like so much better. But what I'm starting to realize from this conversation is yes, there might be right place, right time, and there's pent up energy, and
Always
who
is,
knows
yeah.
how the waves were surfed.
Sure.
But there truly is like the takeaway I continue to get from you just listening to you talk is if you just care about people and you put people first. And this is not even just consumers. Like you talk, you work with your customers, but you
No,
also
no,
work
yeah,
with the
yeah. In fact,
marketplace.
consumers is a weird question, a weird one. In general, I'd say don't work with consumers, work with businesses, right? Because they buy their stuff pre-tax and consumers buy their stuff post-tax. But in
Sure.
general, like this is how I think almost anybody can dig out a market, even in a very dominated space, because the reality is the bigger the competitors are, the less they can focus and the less they can create things that care a lot about that one type of
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
I just think we always thought, okay, look, if we can make these people, how can we help make them more money? How can we create a product they want to use because it's built the way they wanted it built to begin with?
Yep.
And if there's a big enough differentiation there, we're gonna win.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, this is what we've been doing for 6 years and what we'll continue to do because there's a lot left to do. But I think at its core, we know our customer makes money from our products, whereas most of our competitors,
Are
they're
taking
going
the
to
money.
spend money and yeah, it's buying a tool. And if you call those other people and you say, yeah, I just bought your tool, but I'm interested to hear how it can help me make money, they're going to look at you like you're nuts.
Yeah.
But if you come to us and ask that same question, we'll be like, oh, well, we've got a 5-day challenge. We've got this course. It's all free. We're trying to help you. Here's how I would, prospect locally. Oh, we have a prospecting report inside the app to help you with this, on and on and on and on. And
Yeah.
it's all designed like, listen, if you're willing to get out behind your computer and do a little hustle,
Yeah.
we can show you how to turn this into more than buying a tool, but an actual business. No one else takes that angle except us.
Yeah, that's a great point. I just going back, a good friend of mine, Todd Herman, best-selling author, sells high-ticket stuff as well. But one of the things he makes prevalent in his business, every day he wakes up, he goes into a CRM, which I believe is high level, goes into the CRM and just randomly scrolls through the contacts, points one, and gives them a call.
Oh, that's
Someone
cool. Great
and
idea.
yeah, just straight up. And people are like, well, that's not really scalable. He goes, I don't care about scalable. You should
Not, but
see
it
the
doesn't matter.
reaction, yeah, that people have when the founder or their main coach or whoever it is that they perceive this influencer to be, that gives them a call and just says, hey, how are you doing and how can I help you today and what can I improve?
Totally.
I mean, it just wild. Now, one thing you did mention, and again, maybe this is the theme. Maybe it wasn't originally part of the growth strategy. Maybe it was. But one thing you do brilliantly is, like you said, if I'm using any other platform as a tool, it's an expense on my
Oh
profit
yeah,
loss statement. It's like I got to pay them every month, and then you're always thinking, is it worth it? And then the sticking power is the fact that you're just invested into it rather than because you love working with them. You kind of turn that on their head and say, yes, it's a tool that can help you grow your business, but you can white label, like it's beyond affiliate marketing.
yeah.
It's white labeling, it's support, it's all this. Was that
Yep.
always part of the plan or that another thing that you kind of,
So again, this is all based on following your customers. So what do we learn up front? We learned that these marketers and these agencies and everybody, they would go out and they would set up these systems for people and they would pour their heart and soul to making them work.
yeah,
And the customer would get this funny idea that, wait a second, maybe
I
the
can do it
three
on my
hundred
own.
dollars yeah, like no, it was like maybe the $300 a month software is doing all
Ah,
the work and not the agency is $3,000 a month. And then they would fire these people. So the
right.
white label was a simple solution for that. It was like, how do we make it so that no one can be confused as to who is doing the work here? And, and the idea was, well, even if they leave you on the service, you can still charge them for the software. And, or they can't leave you for the software was really just the
Right.
easy first start of that. And then my customers took me the next, that was white label. That's how it was born. And then
Yeah.
my customers took me the next iteration because I would get on the phone and I would be like, hey, so what are you doing? And blah, 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 blah. And I'd start to get these weird stories like, yeah, so what we're really doing now is, yeah, the agency work is cool and it kind of maybe gets the customer through the door, but a real moneymaker is selling the software on a monthly basis. And I was
Ah,
like, weird, like SaaS? And they're like, what's that? And then over time, I heard this like 50 times and I was like, wait a second,
ah,
something's going on here. Something's in the water. So I just investigate, and so now I realized like, gosh, this is it. So yet again, my customers showed me the way. We just packaged it up on the back end and made it easy for people. And then for the people who didn't know how it worked, we just started trying to educate people and boom, that was it. And really, in fact, I would say we try almost never to step out with something that we don't know that our customers are already getting from somebody else or
right.
doing themselves or somehow doing with our system. We never try to create a feature unless we know that they're already doing it because otherwise we almost always lose because we're getting out of that rhythm of following the customer.
Yeah, what's fascinating about that, and again, I guess it's just part of the perfect storm, is that as of late, there's been a lot of conversation about like software being the best business you can own, right? The Acquired podcast talk all about how the biggest margins in
Oh
ever
yeah.
play is software. Everyone's talking software. What's also interesting is like over the last decade, anyone who was considered a well-known guru has then pivoted into software. Whether my friend Alex Becker started Hyros or whoever, it's like even Russell Brunson was
Oh
an
yeah.
information guy, and then
That's cool. I love Alex. Yeah, he's a great example, actually.
yeah, but it's anybody who essentially is like, I'm a guru. I don't like this business per se. I want to go into software. I don't know how. They had to do the heavy work back in the day, obviously.
Oh,
Uh,
100%.
Now you've tapped into this vein of like, oh, I could own a software here. And that could be either my whole business, a part of my business, a sliver of well, either
Yeah,
way, but all of a sudden you can
so
have
let's
this
think
in your
about that for
business.
a second. Yeah. So we've had a bunch of people. First of all, first and foremost, the number one question I get asked here is, can I, like, is it really mine and this and that? And the reality is I've been through, I've raised, let's see, I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars from private equity. So, and, by the way, not at all needing any of it. So I have a very keen idea of what, how this all works. And the straight answer is yes, but the details are, fundamentally we become part of your tech stack, like
Right.
Stripe or Google
Right.
Drive or whatever. And finance people, first of all, number one, people want to buy stuff or fund stuff. They look at the cash flow first, they look at the financials first, and only in diligence do they then go onto the tech. But
Yeah.
don't worry, because once they look at the cash flows and they're happy, if you're like, oh yeah, I've got this vendor and this vendor and this vendor and this vendor, all they care about is those vendors will continue. So in two cases, one, if you're getting funded, they could care less because you still own the business.
Yep.
So they're like whatever. But if they buy it, they want a contractual evidence from all those vendors that they'll continue to get the same pricing you will, so that the money stays. Sorry, the sun's in the way there. The money stays where it is that you said it would. And the reality is we provide that. So that's how that all works, like brass tacks.
Yeah.
Now back to your whole thing, like on a thing about like an Alex Becker in the past, and this is a lot of our strategy. Back to your question of being able to buy one thing and replace seven things. The reality is the tide has changed radically from a couple years ago. A couple years ago it was okay, go get the best of breed
Yeah.
and tie it
Duct
all
tape
together
it.
with that. Yeah, and it gave people this ability to go out and create all these niche apps, which fundamentally shrunk the amount of features you had to build.
Yes.
But now the reality is anybody who tried that has gotten burned so many times on the Zap broke, or it doesn't carry over this
Yeah.
information, or it doesn't tie to that. So we're all done here. People want one app to rule them all.
Yep.
And so now the bar has been considerably raised on the features you'd have to field to get an actual app done. That's why most of the guys who have single place or single feature or like semi single feature apps are selling as fast as they can, because that they realize that long term it's going to a one app strategy. And so with the white label, you can basically come in, and we've had people do this in multitude of ways. Either you just lock, stock, and barrel, take it the way it is, and then add your IP in the form of your coaching, your funnels, your images, all your assets, which are yours, and creates a unique thing, all the way up to people who are like, yeah, but I'm really niched out in healthcare. Well, cool. Come and add that one thing that you would have tried to make its own app a couple of years ago, but now you put it on top of the stack and you get everything all in one spot, right? So it makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, no, I love it. It is truly allowing the quote unquote infopreneur to become a SaaS-preneur simultaneously.
Yes, 100%.
And the service owner to be a SaaS thing. And again, if people are watching or listening to this and don't understand the power of having a true SaaS business, like just ask why everyone is moving into that space and now realizing that HighLevel can help get you there. I think I heard you say at some point somewhere that obviously you guys, the plan was to grow as fast as possible and to be profitable since day one, which I think you have been.
I mean, 6 months in. So let's be fair. Like, front loaded a bunch of money in, but very profitable from almost inception, and have been since then.
And having raised money but not needing it, like, just further attest to that, obviously. How was that done? And what I mean by that is less about like how HighLevel did it, but more along the lines of there are people obviously growing their businesses now and saying, well, man, I'm kind of buried. I got this to consider. Should I bring outside money in? What is your advice to the person who is hoping to bootstrap and actually make it work that way? How they can see profit and grow astronomically, like you guys have, from day one?
Well, I mean, the number one thing is you can't try so I would say our biggest thing is early on, we said, look, we're not going to be greedy and try to hold on to all the money.
Yeah,
so
right.
we realized we aren't good at sales and marketing. How can we create a situation where that weakness becomes our strength? So
Yes.
we found a bunch of people who are amazing at it. And we said, okay, how do we get these people out of bed in the morning to go and get excited about this? So we had our 40% affiliate program that we rolled out. And it's simple. Like, we're not good at marketing sales. If you are, we'll pay you for it. And, versus if you look at the old
Right.
model, they pay for it too, but they do it very unprofitably because
Right.
they go out and hire salespeople and they hire advertisers and marketers and all this stuff. And the reality is they don't get the best of breed, because if you're amazing, you can operate your own marketing and sales stuff on your own.
Yeah.
And you don't have to work for a paycheck. You can have your own business. And so when you do that with something like our affiliate program, you get the most amazing people. And I'm proud to say we cut $1 million plus checks to, I don't know, almost like, I think it's like over 10 people a year now.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy and proud to do it, because I feel so lucky and fortunate that these people wake up every day thinking, okay, how can I provide more value on top of these tools? How can I help teach people? And this is the fun part about it. When you look at what they're doing, they're really fundamentally educating people about different opportunities that they're interested in and bringing our tools along for the ride.
Right.
So they're creating a lot of value. They're not just like going out and saying like, click my link and buy this thing. They're like, no, no, no. Well, I'm going to teach you how to achieve this thing. But it really allowed us to create the situation where, like, the more they do, the more they get paid. We've never changed our terms. We're not
Yep.
ever going to change our terms. We don't do any funny business like other affiliate programs. We just wanted to be super straight out and legit and say, listen, we're going to stay home and pound away on product and engineering and make the best product we can. We're going to do it by listening to you and having you tell us how to do it. And and hopefully, if we have an amazing product and you have great education, you put those together and it's a win-win.
Yeah, I love that. Maybe you could describe what you had encountered as hyper growth. I do notice in our space, again, these are information leaders or service providers. I can tell you the number of conversations I had with people who we talk about, like, go balls to the wall, like, let's go and grow. And their immediate response is, well, then everything will break. Like, how do I fulfill? Or how do I do
Yeah,
this? Or
right.
I got to hire new salespeople, or I got to, whatever.
Yeah.
Is it a SaaS mindset? Because obviously those in the SaaS space are like
It is. I mean,
MVP, get
that
it
is
out
the
there.
exact challenge that I ran into early on with agencies, right? Because they would say they would say the same thing. Fundamentally, they'd be like, yeah, but how do I do this? And it's because you can't have a bespoke model. You need a model that
Mm-hmm.
scales. And this is the whole idea. Like, it's like, what's the difference? And I would show these people these, like, I'd be like, what do you do? And they'd be like, oh, I make websites. And I would show them all these companies, like the Patient Pops of the world or whatever, where it'd be like, okay, these guys have 3 WordPress templates.
Yeah.
They
Same
have the
site.
following 6 options on the menu, and that is all, folks. And they're like, how is that possible? Oh, blah, 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 blah. You're like, well, that's what scale looks like. And then I'm
Yes.
like, about your car, okay? It's like, I hate to break it to you, but you know how many people drive your exact car
Yes,
with your
right.
exact
It
options?
ain't unique.
Thousands of them, tens
Yeah.
of thousands. And if they didn't, the car company wouldn't exist, right? So it's really fundamentally about taking that mindset to your business and being like, I'm going to box this out. You get what's in the box. You don't get anything more than that's in the box. And if you don't like it, you can go someplace else. Because
Right.
but there's a win-win here. So most of the time when this happens, the reality is the person trying to get the value still gets all the same value.
Yep.
It's just that you think it's got to be this crazy thing that it doesn't have to be. And you're able to then, when you scale like this, you can create a price point that is radically less expensive. So your volume goes up. It's the difference, really, if you think about it. If you say, look, do you want a $3,000 a month website or $300
Yeah.
a month website? And the reality is, like, yeah, what if the $3,000 website is 20% better? Fine. But is that really going to translate all the way down? No, it really never does. So boom, let's take the $300. Everyone is happy. The person stays for 20 years instead of 2 months. Like, win, win, win all over the place. But you got to take that mindset of, like, how do I create a scalable thing here? And if I don't have a scalable thing, it's my model that's broken and I have to change things.
Yeah, and you also get the collective benefit, obviously, right? Because if like 300 of your clients have the same website, when you find a feature that works on one and says, hey, we're just going to roll it out on everybody else, there's the collective learning there. If you have custom bespoke on everybody's stuff and trying to like custom change it, obviously there's a mess. Besides the model, is there anything that you want to say about the mindset of growth? So there's obviously the model, bespoke doesn't scale.
No.
But what about the mindset? Because people, it feels like, as odd as this is to say, that people are scared to grow, like, because they feel like stuff will break. What do you have to say about
Stuff will
that?
break.
Yeah,
Yeah, stuff will break. Get ready for it and be okay with it. I mean,
yeah,
we do stuff every day to this day. Okay, so I don't know what we are now, 1,500 plus employees, like, really big company, millions and millions of users, and we still break stuff. And
yeah.
and Well, I would say we never do it like you never do it on purpose. Like no one's like,
Yeah, of course.
I think sometimes people we always think the worst of each other as humans, but it's not like we're over like, I know I'm gonna make this person's, thing break today or whatever. But the reality is if you're gonna move fast, you're gonna break stuff. It's just
Yeah.
how it works. And what you have to do, and the way I teach we teach this to all the team members, is like, okay, look, you just have to sort of try to box this out and compartmentalize it. If we're talking about like money, you tend to want to go a lot slower. So if you're charging
Sure.
people something or you're making a feature that has something to do with money, whoa, slow down. But
Sure.
if it's outside of that, this isn't heart surgery. We're not making airplanes. No one's going to die if it breaks. So go as fast as you can. And if you break
Yeah.
something, the world won't end, right? And so as long as you kind of are smart about what you're breaking or what you're going faster or slower on, you will break things, and that's great. That's how you're creating progress. And yes, you're going to find some people who can't take that and who hate you for it and say really mean things on the internet about you for it.
Right.
But flip side is net, if you can take that a little bit of heat, the people who will appreciate your speed and your ability to deliver will well outscope those people, and you'll
Yeah.
do great.
Yeah. So I mean, I have a confession to make in the sense where, when I first came to HighLevel, it was because I had all this other stuff that was held together by duct tape. And I was like, like that's a bit of a pain in my ass. Let me just move over to HighLevel. The other part of it is part of our service is, we create processes for people, and it was just way more easier to send snapshots into other people's account than to rebuild it. Now the confession part is like, as I was doing a little bit of research for this conversation that the team sent me, I think I use maybe 5% of the features of HighLevel. Like when I'm thinking about it, it's just like we use our landing page builder, we use your calendar, we use the automation, booking, all that. And then when I hear you talk, it's like, oh my God, I'm not even close to the capability of what I could be building here. So I say that for two reasons. Question one is, and again, I want to try and make this evergreen as possible. What are, if any, the favorite features that are like must known? Obviously, there's new things you create.
That's it. This is the funny part. So we call it sell them what they want, give them what they need. So we found early on that if you, it's very counterintuitive to people because on its face, it makes no logical sense. But as the reality is we actually aren't logical creatures despite our,
right.
We say. So on its face, people will say, oh, well, why don't you guys just like do half as many features, but do the ones you have twice as good? That sounds lovely, right? But and in fact, if you look at the usage patterns, they are what you just described: funnel builder, bookings, CRM, like all the core features.
Right.
That's the ones that everyone will use, should use, etc. But if you go out in the world and instead have this carpet bomb list of every feature you've ever heard of, the emotional side of us gets excited, right?
Yep. Right.
Because you're like, okay, well, maybe I don't even know what the heck that feature is, but man, someday when I do need that feature, I've already got it. It's right there. Cool. It's amazing, right? So people get excited, they get ecstatic, and and you have to be careful with that. You got to use that knowledge in the right ways. But I think the reality is, you want to be aspirational as much as you want to be, actually actionable.
Yeah.
Because people, all of us, we need to get the things done. We need to get done today. But boy, are we excited to do something in the future. And to your point, most people don't use those features for a long time, but the day they do and they find that it's in there, it's like, wow,
they're stoked.
Exactly why I showed up. I had no idea you had an affiliate management software tool. And now that I know what affiliates are and I want to run my first program and I want to get other people to promote it for me and automatically pay them out. Wow, that's all sitting in HighLevel already. I had no idea. And they're thrilled, right? So yet another product you don't have to buy.
Yeah. Are there certain use cases that come to mind that people might not be thinking about on how they because obviously we talked about the other side of it, which is landing page, booking calls, all that. Yes, I got it. Yeah. Are there other use cases that come to mind of like certain people in the community who are just using it in ways that you might not even thought, oh, Jesus, that's a creative way to do that?
There are many. But the problem is the second you go down one of those routes, it applies to a very narrow
little
people. But what I would tell you though, is where most people still have the biggest hole is in the nurture, where we all got started. So we used to say HighLevel is everything you need to capture, nurture, close, capture leads, nurture leads, and close leads. And the reality is that nurture piece. So just simply ask yourself 24/7, 365, 2 a.m. on a Christmas morning, if somebody raises their hand and says, I'm interested in your service or your product, are you responding to them in 5 minutes or less? And if the answer is no, that's it. Stop talking. Like you lose. Like you have to fix that. And the reason why is because that piece is where like most people can figure out how to buy more ads. Most people
Yep.
can figure out how to drive more traffic.
Sure.
And if you ask most people, do you need more leads? They'll say yes. But the big missing piece here is the conversion.
Yeah.
And what is always missing in the conversion is, okay, you ran that Facebook ad, I filled out that form, and oh wait, nothing happened because you didn't get back to me quickly. And now I can't remember who you are anymore because it's been 2
Right.
hours and I'm distracted, right?
Yeah.
Had you got me down that funnel faster through automation, and these days it's so much cooler because before it used to just be like a one-off text, and
Yeah.
then if you wrote back, the human would have to get involved. But now AI can just rock all this. Or like we have inbound voice AI now, which is amazing also. But it's all nurture, 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 nurture. That's where all the money gets made. Because if you think about it, there's even in your post menopausal, or not menopausal, post birth stress
Yeah.
niche, there's still other people who will claim to be the best at that.
Yep.
You'll always have competition. And the reality is it's the person who compounds the fastest is going to win. And how do you compound? You rack up more customers. How do you rack up more customers? You follow with the leads and get them converted as fast as humanly possible. That's how you win.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd know it offhand, but I think one of the cool things about being able to talk to you is that you have access to millions of people's data, right? And so while one guru over there is saying this is the best way to get someone to show up to a call, you could actually be like, actually, the data shows otherwise. Knowing the capture, nurture, close process, knowing that nurture is the key, and then maybe we'll just throw in a filter of the vast majority of people listening to this are higher ticket service providers. So they're either agencies or they're selling a high ticket coaching program and they're layering in some sort of software as a process. Right now, what we noticed, for example, is show up rates to sales calls are at an all-time low, for example. It just seems to be an industry-wide thing. I don't want to just focus on no-shows unless you have some data that you'd love to share about that. But knowing that this is the filter by which some people are listening to this, and knowing that you've seen the data of the capture, nurture, close, can you speak to the key elements in that kind of a funnel? Again, where you're capturing a lead, you want to get them on a phone call, not everyone shows up to the phone call. What do you do then? Like anything that comes to mind on what the data saying?
This is where, like, if you have the basics in place, it's how you optimize every funnel, in my opinion. You start at the top and then you make sure you hyper optimize that first step so that everybody who can gets to that next step, but also realize like there's different paths, right? So let's say I don't show up, but what are all the other details? Like, did you put me in, again, all this can be done in high level. Did you put me in a custom audience inside Facebook? So I'm seeing ads that are specific to that. Am I now on the email list? Like, are you surrounding me in all the different ways that you can both free, like during the nurture sequence? And then also what happens when after a certain point, you got to kind of consider me like kind of cold. So then you got to flip me and you got to put me on another track and you got to follow me in a different place and keep me warm, because the reality is that at some point I was interested in what you were
there was intent.
Something was there, and you need to continue to talk to me and just warm me back up. And also, I also think there is the old method of like, okay, now it's time for you to give me your time to get on a call. Like there's this like implicit assumption that like I owe you this phone call. And I think you need to ask yourself, like, when you're trying to get me on a call, why are you trying to get me on a call? And are you communicating that, right? If you look at, I always mess this up, but like Robert Cialdini or Cialdini or whatever, that's a great book. But one of the things they show is like, if you use the word because, it's like a magic word. It almost gets people to like, you could say because almost anything. And people will like
take the action,
like cut in line or whatever. So the reality is that you need to figure out, like, are you putting enough because I want to deliver more value to you kind of statements in the reason you're asking me to get that call? So it's all those little copy details and all of that just, and again, you need to split test as well. So you can do this in high level. You can split test different messages and all this, both on text, both on email, both on, whatever. Just really grind down to those details and figure out, are you treating me with respect all the way through? Are you getting to me in 5 minutes or less? Are you making my life easy? Like, I see a lot of people do stupid things like jump to surveys and all this other crap because they think that like somehow that makes things better. But if anything, you got to realize that's like another way to like squeeze out people, right? So don't introduce friction in your funnel until you absolutely have to. Like, even, the mortgage people are the classic, like, oh, what's your credit score and this and that. And I'm like, well, before you do that, are you getting are you getting a lot of garbage leads? Because remember, maybe you're getting some garbage leads, but if it's not so many that it's killing you, then remember you always want to take the pain. Don't try to put the pain back on somebody else, right? So don't try to like, it's like the no, it's like the signs thing, like no shirt, no shoes, no service. Like who really walks in with no shirt and
Yeah,
no
right.
shoes? Like, sure, there was that one guy or there's an occasional person or
One
whatever.
time.
But is that really a sign that every single stupid customer needs to see? I don't think so. It feels
Right.
discouraging. Right?
Good
Why is
point.
it you sound mean? So
Right.
take out all that crap and just make it as simple and easy from the customer's perspective until you just can't take it anymore. And then you could put a little friction in, but almost no one gets back to that point
Yeah.
because it's really not as big of a deal as they think. So it's all those little details that you just got to grind on to really change the game instead of just saying like, hey, thanks for booking. Here's, can't wait to talk to you. Here's a link, book a call.
Right. Right. Yeah. Do you, on that note, and you may not know, and that's okay, but do you have any like best practices based on certain data points? Because, like someone will throw out something like, someone needs 22 touch points before they're willing to make a conversation. I don't want to go overly
I
into,
don't know about that. I mean, I think my problem with all of those stats is there's always the people um, who can defy that
sure,
logic.
right. Great
Sure,
point.
sure. It is are more are having a sufficient number of touch points important? Absolutely. But if any of those touch points are anything less than stellar, don't waste my
It
time
doesn't
and don't
matter.
waste your own. You're just burning your reputation. So it's like I think the problem with stats like that is like, oh, I know, I'm gonna go create 22 emails right now and be like bump, bump,
Yeah,
bump,
yeah.
hey. And
Right.
you just get this like, so I think it's more about like really trying to put yourself in the perspective of the customer. And then also think about like how much do you know your customer? Like I always used to love it when I got to the point where I'd talk to agencies and I'd be like, oh, what kind of agency are you? Oh, I'm a lead gen agency. I'm like, oh man, I bet your churn is like through the roof. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, how did you know? You read my mind. And it was like, well, no, I've just talked to so many of you. I
Yeah.
know that's the deal. You need to know your customer like that. Like, why are they coming to you? Like, what is that problem that like, because I think the ultimate way to solve people is if you can do that magic trick. If you can say what is already in their mind, you win, like game
Yeah.
over. They're going to
Right.
say, person understands me.
Yep.
Like
Right.
this person gets what they're trying to do. And if you can be that person, like, oh, I've solved this 100 times. I could solve this for you in 5 minutes. Like you got to have that kind of flavor about you. But don't do the whole 22 touch points, 100 blog articles, this and that. It's got to be like, I would rather go slow, step it out very slowly, but be incredibly intentional about each of those steps and measure the impact of those changes. Because I'll tell you, even back to old like web, 1.0, it's like the green button or the red button
Yeah. Right.
can make dramatic a difference, right?
Right.
We put my HR team put the jobs link at the top of the website because they were like, oh, we just want to make it easy for people to find the jobs. And our conversion rate went down like 20% because of that one stupid link.
Mm.
Right. So small things have massive abilities to impact your conversion.
Yeah, what I'm appreciating about this conversation is like in a world where everyone's looking for the cool tactic or this, that, or the other, what this conversation has come down to is bring it back to the basics. Like talk to humans as though they're humans. Don't worry about the million and one things, but treat people like you'd want to be treated.
Yeah.
Give people a reason to take the action that they want to take and move through the process.
Well, and
Like,
think about it like this, like, and I did this, I've done this my whole career. Anytime I was like, look, I really want to know what this person knows, but I don't know. And as a result, I know I can't give them any value through my product. I was like, I just call them and I'd be like, hey, I'll pay you $100 an hour to talk to me.
right.
Or I'd just be like, hey, what do you do? Oh, I'm an accountant, whatever. Oh, what's your hourly rate? Oh, it's $75 an hour. Great. I'm going to buy an hour of your time right now. And I just want you to answer questions.
Yeah.
So if you have a bunch of leads coming in and no one's booking calls from you, right? Like figure out a way to like take it the other direction. Be like, I'm like batting really terribly here. Like reach out to some of these people
That's great
and
advice.
say, look, I will pay you $50 or $100 to get on a call with me just so I can understand what I'm doing wrong. Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, you're saying, listen, I can help this person. I know they have this need.
Yeah.
Why won't they let me help them?
Right.
I've got to be giving off some signal that's making them think, this isn't the right person for me. So figure it out. Like
don't guess.
Yeah, but don't guess. Yeah, if you have to pay money out of your own pocket, for Pete's sake, go do it. And then people, to be honest, like, I don't know, you look ugly. I hate your haircut. Like whatever it is, fine. Like I'll shave my head. I'll color
at least
some
I know.
highlights. I don't know, but figure out what is really the turnoff and fix it, and let them be honest, and you'll get there.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up. On a side note, my good friend Ryan Levesque did a split test on one VSL with a full beard and one VSL without a full beard.
Yeah.
And he found the no beard one actually out converted the one by a long shot. And like people just don't think that way. And you know, you don't want anyone to get caught up in those types of weeds, but
Hey, I mean, if you're
ask
going to show up
people
with your
and
face
find
on the
out.
internet and ask people to trust you, you got to look trustworthy. And again, back to being animals, right? Like, it's like the whole idea is like, if I put on a white coat right now and a stethoscope, and I just and some suit pants and some nice shoes, and I
Right.
start telling people I'm a doctor, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I'm going to get a couple of people who are going to say, "Of course you are."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so that's the point. That's how we're wired as people, and you gotta find the positive of it, and you got to use it to do good things in the world. But just realize like that's who we are. Like don't get tripped up by it. Just take advantage of it, create the positive out of it, and you'll do great.
Yeah. As we kind of bring certain things to a close here, I almost asked this selfishly. I wonder if you have it as a service. Because like when I'm talking to you and I'm looking at all that HighLevel offers, I know a bunch of our clients as well are using HighLevel. There's almost a sense of, I wish there was someone who could sit down and look at what we've done and then tell me, oh, you could add this part of HighLevel to it. Or have you thought about this element? And I know when you're in the community, sometimes it just feels overwhelming. There's a million and one things you can add on to it, and everybody's an
Oh,
expert.
yeah.
Is that a service? Can we hire someone at HighLevel to say like, hey,
No.
let's just
Well,
consider
that's
adding
why
these things?
so that's why we have our directory.gohighlevel.com. We have the certified partners network
Yeah.
specifically for a reason. Because I think that the reality is that what you're really looking for is exactly that. I'm an expert in HighLevel, and I have experience with other people doing what you do. And what's beautiful about it is if you use it in the right way, it's killer. You just call the people that look interesting, you ask for
Yep.
references,
Right.
you
Of
call
course.
the references.
Yeah.
And if you talk to a bunch of people like you, bingo, you found the right person, right? Now over time, we'll do more here. Like we'll have a lot of industry specific snapshots, specifically things that are easily addressable, and that are a little more inclusive. We'll even have like, we'll go deeper, like sub account style. So that like when you say like, this sub account's for a plumber or
Yeah.
whatever, or like,
Yeah.
even a high ticket coach, it'll shut off some of the menu items and stuff, make the presentation a little
Very
simpler,
cool.
stuff like that.
Very
But if
cool.
you want, I think what most people want is somebody to like do it for them. And
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
directory.gohighlevel.com is, and that's what
Perfect.
those people do. But please, hear what I said out of the gate. Ask for references
Yes.
and call them. I don't want to hear about this person said they would give me the sun, moon, and stars, and they
I
didn't.
only got this.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, please pay in some method where you can charge it back, because if for whatever reason, look, these people take our proctor's exams, they pay us to be in the list. I will tell you, I could think we have 0 people in there. I think of anything but amazing, but just please be a smart business person
Yeah.
when it comes to
No,
transacting.
no Western
But
Union
there are
payments.
amazing people in there.
Yeah. As we wrap up, what are you most excited about the future of HighLevel? And not just features, because I know there's going to be builds on
Yeah, I
features
mean,
over and
it's
over and
not.
over
I mean,
again.
that's the great thing about. Okay, so here's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about all the people that are being successful. It's
Cool.
truly what I get out of bed for every day.
Yeah.
Seeing the fact that we're democratizing what used to be something that was nearly impossible to do, and even people who pull it off have harrowing stories of
Yeah.
spending way more money than they ever thought and taking large risks. Being able to take that all away, democratize that, see so many people be able to take what are great ideas, amazing experience, and go out and translate that into like real life goals. Like,
Yeah.
and it's different for everybody, right? Like, I love like the heavy hitters who do amazing things, but I love the people who like get to quit their 9 to 5s too, right? Like,
Sure.
it is just, that is what it is. I am so excited about the fact that we have a model now that I really truly feel passionate about, can help so many people, and we're taking it international,
I love that.
different languages, all the
Yeah.
currencies, like all that stuff. So no, it doesn't matter where you live, where you're from, what your background might be. Like if you're just willing to go out there and work and hustle, this platform can really do amazing things for you.
Yeah, I love that. So last kind of question on a total side note, that I like to ask all my guests is, what's the best purchase you made in the last 12 months? And that's just because all of our guests are like, oh, I want to buy something cool, and this person bought something cool. What might that be? Doesn't matter what the price point is, by the way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm trying to think what the best thing I bought was. Um, let's see. Well, I switched from Android to iPhone, and I'm half
Recently.
like well, to be fair, I've probably done it 20 times, but I stuck with it this time. And while I'm a software nerd at heart, and I love all the features of Android and all that, what I've realized is it's nice to have something where I don't have to like constantly maintain, update, or worry about it. So my iPhone 16 Pro is probably the best purchase I've made, only because now there's like it never doesn't work. Like
Yeah.
the Zoom call doesn't overwhelm the battery or the modem or whatever while I'm driving down the freeway and I can't do that important call. Like it's nice not to have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah, no, I too was an Android user my entire life until about 3 years ago. Moved over to the iPhone only because my friends wouldn't reply to my text messages because they came out green instead of blue. They're like, "You blue, green." I'm
What's
not.
wrong with you, man?
Yeah, I ain't chatting to you. Last question, how I like to sum it up, and I think it's just to give recognition for those who may need the recognition, is the imaginary state is you're being presented with a lifetime achievement award for everything you've built up until this point, almost like a Grammys or an Emmys kind of thing. The microphone comes up and you have 30 seconds to thank people. Who are the 1, 2, 3 people that you are thanking and why?
Well, definitely my wife and my son. My wife for believing in me and supporting me financially, especially early on,
Yeah.
and really my son for convincing me that to do this to begin with, because
Oh, wow.
I mean I couldn't. I figured when he was a very small baby, I realized I can lie to myself about giving up on my hopes and dreams, but I could never lie to him about it. So I better get my butt out there, make it
I
happen.
love that.
And I would say, after that, literally my two co-founders and all the amazing customers who have brought us to where we are today. Those are all the people I owe a great deal of gratitude towards. And I feel so lucky and fortunate to know.
I appreciate that. Other than gohighlevel.com, is there anywhere else that people should go to find out more and learn about you or get started
I
with
always
the
point out the
company?
YouTube channel because
There's a
it's
ton
free.
there.
You have to sign up for a trial. We have a ton of content in there. So yeah, definitely go to YouTube and search Go High Level. You can't miss it.
Awesome. Well, everybody, we've been talking to Shaun Clark, CEO, co-founder of HighLevel. Remember, you only have so many hours in a day, so let's stop wasting them and focus on what matters most. And that is the bottom line. Shaun, thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks again.
Thanks for listening to the Bottom Line Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.